Well, after covering what is the motivation to learn how to argue, let's start with how do we argue? I've been taking the time and really thinking about it. How do I approach this topic? Where do I start? Should I start from the logical beginning, explaining what are axioms? Or should I start with understanding what's your goal? What do you want? How do you approach a debate? How do you recognize what you are trying to achieve? Third option I thought about, well, maybe I should actually start with what your opponent, what their motivation is, how to recognize it. And then my friend sent me this beautiful pyramid, Graham's hierarchy of disagreement. And what the pyramid stands for is different types of arguments and how prevalent they are. So at the base of the pyramid, you have the most prevalent arguments, and at the top, the rarest, most refined kind of arguments. What is so nice about this pyramid, which I'm gonna start talking about in the moment, is that it is based on real life. When you think about arguing today, especially, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Well, online. Online trolls, online arguments, anonymous people writing negative comments, having all those negative emotions and thoughts. When the option of commenting was suddenly so available to the wide public, we can see how
12 seconds later.
It really demonstrated the types of arguments that are used and also how prevalent they are, and also showed how hard it is to argue properly. He noticed the argument types that kept repeating themselves in those comments, and he made this beautiful pyramid that demonstrates the strength of an argument vis how easy it is to make this argument and how prevalent it is online and in general. So those argument types are actually a very good way to start and learn how to build an argument and also get that sense of what argumentation is really like. So who is Paul Graham I've been talking about? Well, first of all, he's originally a programmer. Maybe this is why he likes logics and arguments so much. A lot of programmers like to argue. I think it's part of the characteristics that you need to have in order to go to engineering. And now he's a venture capitalist, and he's one of the co-founders of Y Combinator. This pyramid appeared in his blog. You can find the link to his blog post down in the description below. Let's start. So here's the pyramid, and here's what you can see. So here at the bottom we have name calling. This is the lowest form of disagreement. This is saying you're ugly and you look retarded, and I'm not going to listen to anything you're saying. This is not even a real argument, right? The lowest tier here in this pyramid is level 0. And the reason it starts from 0 is because the first level is not an argument. You can also have sophisticated name callings, but name callings are name callings, and it's pretty easy to understand what they are. To be honest, when you scroll down the comments, most of them that you're gonna see are gonna be probably name calling, just personal attacks. The second level is ad hominem. The reason ad hominem is an argument is because it can make the person who reads this argument doubt and question the initial argument that was given. So what is ad hominem? Ad hominem is simply attacking the characteristics of the person given the argument. For example, we are watching me right now talking about building an argument. Well, you can say something like, well, she doesn't have a degree in philosophy. Or you can say something like, how do we know that she knows what she's talking about? How do we know that she knows how to argue? It is sort of an argument because it plants this notion of doubt in whoever is listening to this argument, saying, wait, why should I listen to this person really? But the reason it's on level 1 and why it's so prevalent is because it's so easy. Any person you can look at will have a certain agenda or a certain background or a certain thing that you can attack and say that indicates that their opinion is irrelevant. But it is not a very sophisticated argument. This is in the real arguments tier, that's the lowest you can go. The second type of argument that you can have a little bit above it, but not that much above it because it's still a pretty bad argument to make, is addressing a tone of voice. This is a very easy way of saying, okay, but why are you attacking me? Why are you being so aggressive? Or why are you talking about serious matters in such a happy voice? Are you happy about what is going on? Do you have no mercy? So many ways of insulting someone for their tone of voice. But I'm not sure it's even a little bit more valid than the ad hominem argument. It might be true that somebody is saying something in a tone of voice that is inappropriate, but it also kind of depends on the listener's sensitivity. You can say, well, it is somewhat of a legitimate claim when somebody is actually threatening you. If somebody is threatening you or uses a threatening voice, it almost doesn't matter what they're saying. So I guess there is something to it, to this type of argument. But it's a weak argument and it's not a debate argument. It's not an argument you use when you want to find what the truth is. The other way to look at it, though, that it also depends on the listener's sensitivity. Someone might claim that the tone was negative or had some underlying implications that were not there because they are sensitive to the topic, because they tend to get offended easily. So this was the third tier, the second type of argument. On level 3 we have contradiction, and this is the first time that finally we are addressing the issue at hand. This is the first kind of argument that actually acknowledges whatever the other person is arguing about. When you state the opposing argument, you're doing several things. The first thing that you're doing is actually you're saying what's the other option. Sometimes people are presented with an argument and it's hard to understand what the other option is at all. So even here, just saying, well, there is also this option and it's, let's say, whatever, it can be a legit option, not a legit option. It exists. That also gives something. That's something that you can start building on. So this is actually the first tier where there is some value when it comes to seeking out the truth. What do I mean when I say seeking out the truth? I mean, when you seek out the truth, you try to find something that is workable, something that will move you forward, something that will make the world better, something that will, get you closer to your spouse when you're having a fight, other than alienating them. An example for contradiction would be, for example, saying on the claim that sugar is not healthy, saying that sugar makes you happy. And when you add to that whatever makes you happy makes you healthy, then you go into counterargument, where you state the opposite case and also give a reasoning or a backup to your counterargument. Counterargument is contradiction with reasoning. So you add some evidence that supports your opposing claim. And this is where it starts being more interesting. On the next two, the top two tiers, we have the level 5 and the level 6 kind of arguments. Those are refutations. And the refutations are the hardest to do and they are the hardest to make. And actually, when we are gonna talk about how to argue in this course in general and in this lesson, when I go to the next step of building a killer argument, we're gonna mainly focus on how to refute an argument, how to build an argument of this type, because this is the strongest type, but it also requires the most amount of understanding and logical tools and thinking. Basically, what refutation means is, given an argument, you take away the basis of the argument. There are two tiers here, the 6th and the 7th, which are level 5 and level 6. And they are based on refutation. When you refute something, you actually quote the other person's words, the other person's statement. And this is a little bit harder to do because this requires understanding the quote, well, you can imagine a quote here. To be able to refute this quote, you need to understand what this quote is based upon, what it stands on, and then remove that or bring another factor that will refute this quote. That's a little bit harder. And above that is the refutation of the central point. But because another thing that is not that easy is actually recognizing what's the central point of an argument. What are you fighting against? What are you trying to argue? What are you trying to deliver? Understanding what the central point is not easy, even when you're the one building the argument, even when you're the one who is trying to reach a certain goal. So it is definitely not that easy when somebody else is making these claims. So many times there are several arguments wrapped into one argument or one conversation, and sometimes it's a bit hard to really point out and understand what is the main argument, what should you be refuting. It's a little bit easier to just take like a side argument and try to refute it. Now that we went through this pyramid and understood a little bit what kind of arguments exist, what types of arguments do we have, I'm pretty excited to show you how exactly do you build those kind of arguments, going from bottom up. Now that we have the motivation to argue and also we understand what kind of arguments exist, we can dive into the most interesting parts, which is how to build a killer argument, how to knock out your opponent. Let's start.